What is going on, everybody? It's a Thursday episode of your source for fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, just with your boy. And we're breaking down some top second half, sell high targets, and all of the top fantasy news affecting your squad. Thursday's big time bets. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, holding down the Thursday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My friends, you know this fantasy game is serious to your boy when I'm on here with half a voice, trying to bring you everything that you need. So needless to say, I'm here solo today, trying to bring you some of the topics and some of the angles that I really do truly feel sacrificing my voice will take your team over the top. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the news affecting Max Pacioretty. He's back. We're taking a look at it because he might just be that kind of piece that gets overlooked, that might slot into the top 6 in Washington, that does take your team over the top. Jake Oettinger nearing a return. Pete DeBoer saying that there's a lot of progress with this player. You know I love me some Jake Oettinger. I got to take a quick look at that. And when I say quick, I hope you know by hearing my voice that it is going to be quick. But I couldn't miss today's episode because sell high targets is what got me out of bed this morning. This is the type of time of year that if you are the GM, you never want to get away from a guy on a heater, but you never want to stick to a guy who maybe not peak this kind of value again when you could get a whole boatload of return for him. So we're going to take a look at some top second half sell high targets and, of course, Thursday's big time bets. Let me keep it tight. Let me keep it short and sweet. Max Pacioretty banged up over the last couple of years, 2 Achilles tears, but when he was healthy for the Carolina Hurricanes, he was putting up goals, and it was only, I think, 3 goals in like 4 or 5 games, but it clearly proved that he could still get it done. And the Washington Capitals, say what you will about them as well, they're fighting for playoff opportunity, and Alex Ovechkin is struggling. And right now, looking at Max Pacioretty's deployment, I don't get super jazzed up about it. Playing with Matthew Phillips and Dylan Strome, that makes a whole lot of sense. And there are going to be some GMs that go out there and take a shot on Pacioretty only because of what he's been able to do over the last number of years and over the course of his career. So if he starts to move up that lineup a little bit, and I know moving up the lineup in Washington doesn't exactly mean a whole lot, this is the kind of deployment that we have to pay attention to, because opportunities to augment your roster in a big way, and I know it's Max Pacioretty, they're going to become fewer and more far between. So when a bigger name comes out, it's worth having a look, even if it's just on a week-to-week, day-to-day, game-to-game basis, because clearly Max Pacioretty's ability to stay in the lineup has been affecting his fantasy value. 2 Achilles tendons tears is not something you can predict. And what you can predict is Pacioretty in the mix with a team with a shot at the playoffs. You know he's going to bring some kind of offensive value. So that's where I would implore you to take a look at Max Pacioretty. Let me take a little sip here quick. 645 points in this guy's career in 855 games. You know he can come in even at 35 years old and offer up some offensive value. So that's where I would say take a look at least over the next couple of games while we see what his legs can do, because Achilles tears are Achilles tears. That's obviously going to affect this guy's ability to come back in and play at the NHL level. But it's something that he's been able to do before those injuries. So you got to be double eyes peeled. Jake Oettinger, Pete DeBoer saying that he is ahead of schedule. He is nearing a return. He's now been upgraded week to week down to day. Shout out to Scotty Wedgwood. We were all over Scott Wedgwood. Most GMs out there, fantasy wise, know that Scott Wedgwood has been one of those fantasy goalies that has been an absolute stud fill in. Does he have number one capability? Probably, but that's not the argument. He has filled in admirably 11, 3, and 2 with a 3.01 goals against, a 900 save percentage in 16 games, most of those in relief of Jake Oettinger. Look, Jake Oettinger 11, 7, and 2 this season, 293 save goals against, and a 901 save percentage. That is a shell of what I actually think Jake Oettinger can be. And if you tune into the pod, you know I absolutely love Jake Oettinger. This guy is a number one stud. I'm invested into him in my Keeper Dynasty League. I love what this guy brings to the table, and I'm not even close to calling a 25-year-old goaltender who has had a bad year on a down spell. Maybe, and it's hard to peg a guy on a injury and coming off time. Maybe this is what he needs. You never want to speculate that, and this is obviously a rare case, but maybe the 25-year-old needed a little reset, because we know, looking at these numbers over his first few years in the NHL, a 914 career save percentage, 249 career goals against, 8 shutouts. This guy's an absolute stud. He was 5th in Vezina voting last year. He's nearing a return. You got to pay attention to it, because not only were you relying on Scott Wedgwood week to week, you're going to have to probably get away from him now, or maybe you stash him as an emergency fill. Ottinger's back. He's the guy. He's going to be the guy on a really good Dallas Stars team. This team is going to be in the mix for the Stanley Cup. So with him back, with him healthy, 11, 7, and 1 so far this season, 901 save percentage, 293 goals against, like I mentioned, not jumping off the page, but I think he is due for a big, big second half. I'm going to talk about sell high targets around the break. Maybe he is a buy low, quote unquote, although I don't think you're going to be getting him for very low. We'll talk about buy low targets on tomorrow's episode right around the break. My sell high targets that I want to talk about. And of course, Thursday's big time bets. It's the Busted Voice episode. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. You know, Steele and I have been absolutely loving the Sleeper app, and that's why you got to be checking it out. Regardless of how high you are in the standings, remind yourself that you could be winning big on daily fantasy on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your money with any daily check-in. Check out 100 times your bet on Sleeper. You need to be correctly predicting the outcome of 8-player stats. Your favorite team, you can win 100 times your money by betting on them on Sleeper. Start paying attention. Nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And, of course, locational availability. Make sure you're checking out that Sleeper app today. My friends, it's the Busted Voice episode. I hope you're feeling it. We rounded up a little bit of news. The meat and potatoes is obviously the sell high fantasy hockey options I'm going to get to right now. But thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Make sure you're checking out the 24/7 coverage of the Locked On Network on YouTube, the first 24/7 sports streaming service. They got you covered every single day, every single minute of every single day. So make sure you go check that out. Thank you for holding us down. Make sure you check us out across all the platforms you find your favorite and hottest content. Maybe if you weren't before, aside from the quality of my voice, I hope you see the dedication that we put into the pod, because it's all about helping you guys get this paper. And sell highs might be, and of course, buy lows, but this angle is probably the GM who navigates this the most astutely. Look up in your standings every season. This person is probably the one who does it the best, because they're probably getting that money in. Look, selling high. I guess you never really want to get away from a player while they're on a special heater getting points. But it might be even worse to look at a player who's never really gotten it like they are right now and hanging on to them when you could have gotten a whole boatload of legitimate year in and year out fantasy pieces. And that's how I'm looking at these names today. Sergei Bobrovsky on the Florida Panthers. I could have put Sam Reinhart in this mix. Going into the second half of last season, they were ready to write off Sergei Bobrovsky completely. And perhaps if not for all the money Florida has invested in him, and that's another caveat into this breakdown that has to be considered. I believe he's still under contract after this season for 2 more at 10.5 or $25 million. So that might keep him in the relevancy realm for a little bit longer than he should. But to me, at 18-9-1 with 2 shutouts, 2.44 goals against, and a 912 save percentage, I know this Florida team is really good. And I understand that they are proving that last year's run to the playoffs or run to the Stanley Cup was a lot more than just a fluke. But from what I've seen from Bobrovsky, considering that he has 670 regular season games, not even mentioning playoffs, on that body that we know has been banged up and has missed some time, I would love to move on from this guy and perhaps get a good young goaltender and a prospect. You know me, guys. If you're tuned and tapped into the pod every single day, great idea. Shout out to you. Much love. Smash the subscribe. Drop us a 5-star review. You know me when it comes to goaltending. It's perhaps the hardest position to manage year in and year out, especially when it comes to the keeper dynasty side of things. If you have a number of teams in your league trying to hold down 2 goalies that not only start, but start and have effective fantasy production is perhaps the hardest thing you can do. So Sergei Bobrovsky, looking at him at 35 years old, looking at him right now, and yeah, okay, it might be bold considering that the Florida Panthers are playing really well right now, actually playing their best hockey of the season. So you're like, Flip, why would I sell a goalie doing that? That's what sell high is. And I'm looking at him to not be able to prolong this run. That's how I'm looking at it. You can go out there and get yourself a good couple of young pieces for Bobrovsky. I've thrown out the numbers. I've thrown out the track record. That's how I'm looking at it. And what's the hardest angle for sure, and I get it as I take another sip. This is the laryngitis episode. It's water, by the way. Bobrovsky is on the Florida Panthers. So if they do go on a heater, I get it. But I would rather invest in it from the angle that this season, yeah, I could see it happening. I could see it happening, and you're going to get burned a little bit. But long term, I think after this season, it's hard for me to put a finger on both what Bobrovsky holds and what this Florida Panthers team can do, contractual or otherwise. First target, sell high. Sergei Bobrovsky. Boy, the voice is holding up not bad. 2 out of 5, guys. 2 out of 5. Hope you're feeling it. Next one, Filip Forsberg. Look, great season. And when you look into the numbers, you're going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. 84 points in 69 games 3 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, 42 points in 50 games. And in this season, 42 points in 38 games. This Nashville Predators club is overachieving, number one. And I know he's forming some nice chemistry, I believe, playing with Ryan O'Reilly. And is it Gustav Nyquist right now? I'll pull it up. So I'm not trying to deter from that at all. So it's Nyquist and Riley. This Nashville Predators team is a bit of an enigma. We expected it to take a big step back, and for some reason, it's taken a step forward. It's probably, no, I'm not going to say for some reason. David Poile left this team with a lot of good young pieces, a lot of silent, balanced, good, all-around players that are obviously allowing UC Saros to have a bit of a bounce back, allowing veterans like Filip Forsberg to have a really big season. And this is just my take on this. So, hit me in the comments. Let me know if I'm way off. But Filip Forsberg, to me, on the team he is on and on their overall trajectory in terms of like this year and next, I'm not really buying into that, number one. And number two, why not get a whole boatload of pieces for a guy in Forsberg? And again, I looked at some of the peripherals, like he had 112 hits. He can throw the body around. He does a little bit of everything. I just have a feeling that he is going to fall off. This is my prediction. Shooting 12% last year. He's shooting 12% this year when 2 years ago he was at 18%. So the shooting percentage is a bit concerning. That's number one. And it's just, he is 30 years old. When I look at what you could get, that's where I'm enticed. Again, let me know if I'm off the mark here. Filip Forsberg, to me, when I looked at the standings, when I look at the statistics, and I look at what I think is going to happen over the next year or two, he flies to the top of sell high. I just don't see this replication of production from him. I don't see it from this Nashville Predators team, who might actually be selling a number of pieces, even though they are still in the mix in the Western Conference for a wild card spot. No denying that. I just have this weird feeling that his value is going to drop off in a very big way. The episode is not going to drop off, however, because we're going to continue to bring that heat. I got my Thursday bets. I got one more sell high target that I want to talk to right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Steele and I loving the betting on FanDuel. NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app, safe, super easy to use and secure. Live same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find the popular parlays, and of course, a whole lot more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. My friends, Thursday's episode. Thank you for holding me down solo. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, covering all of the latest news, Friday's bets, teeing you up for the weekend, of course. Sell highs. I'm going to continue. I got one more player, a veteran, and I've got my Thursday bets, of course. 13-game NHL betting board. I've been picking it up a little bit. I can't speak for Steele, but your boy's been making a little bit of that holiday money. Sean Couturier, Coots, Cootsy, Lizard, The Answer, so-called names on Hockey Reference. Don't know if I'm feeling all of those. Again, this is a veteran, one of the best two-way forwards in the game since I've been covering it professionally since 2015. He has been banged up, obviously, not playing a full season since 2018-19. When you look at his ability to come back in the lineup this year, and I guess aside from the Florida Panthers, who are trending in the right direction, Nashville's overall situation affects Filip Forsberg's value for me. And I think the Philadelphia Flyers have been overachieving as a group overall. So that's where I actually would look. If you're buying into a team as overachievers, you're not really seeing how they've gotten to the success they have in their season so far, then maybe dig a little deeper into those fantasy pieces that have been also overachieving, and they make a whole lot of sense as sell high targets. Sean Couturier isn't necessarily overachieving himself because, I think he is all the value of his 24 points in 35 games that he has brought, but he is 31 years old. He has faced multiple serious injuries. I think this Philadelphia Flyers team right now is very much overachieving. I know they're a disciplined bunch. I know Torts has them playing good hockey, but there's going to be some players on this team that make for perfect sell high candidates. I looked at the Vancouver Canucks, Philip Roenick, and others. That is a situation that I think might be a lot more sustainable. Whereas in Philly, I'm really not seeing it. So Sean Couturier, sell high, you might be able to look at a team very close to the top. If you're fading out, Couturier is that perfect piece, especially in the keeper dynasty realm, as an aging veteran, that if your team's out of it, sell him off now while he's still holding value before the Flyers take a nosedive, which I really do think they do, and you get yourself maybe a nice little young prospect, maybe a nice little draft pick for a guy that I don't think he's a keeper for a lot of teams, especially if you are out of the mix. So take that as you will. but the sell high targets are something you're going to have to focus on. We're going to talk about buy low targets on tomorrow's episode. Before we wrap up today's episode, however, I got to talk about these bets. Record so far this season, I've been feeling it lately. Obviously, over the holidays, it's a tough stretch. So when I dive into tonight's 13-game betting board, I'm going to reel these off very, very quickly. The Chicago Blackhawks, I think, have not been able to have their proper breakdown of how bad they are because of how good Connor Bedard has been. This Blackhawks team is straight trash. And the New York Rangers, I know they've been a little bit up and down of late. And head to head, it's an even split, 5-5 between the last 10 between these two teams. But I think the Rangers, also coming off a tough 6-1 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, are primed for a spot where they lay an absolute smackdown on the visiting Chicago Blackhawks. Blackhawks getting slapped around themselves in the last 3 games, 3 straight losses. Hit me with the New York Rangers on the puck line. I'm feeling this one in a very big way, and that's why I'm taking them by 2 or more goals. Next game, New York Rangers on the road into the Arizona Coyotes. This one has all the makings of one that I wanted to go to the under. And when I look at the head-to-heads, 9 of the last 10 meetings between these two have gone under the number. These two teams struggle to score goals. Overall, I know of late, New York has actually been pretty solid offensively. Arizona also overall only 2 losses out of their last 8 games. 8 games. But I think this one goes under the number. It's got a gut feeling. The head-to-head is pointing to the under. The voice is going. So if you're not feeling it, hit me in the comments. Last pick, Quinn Hughes. Anytime assist. You got Vancouver on the road against the St. Louis Blues. Head-to-head, I was ready to hammer this Vancouver team because that would make a whole lot of sense. 2-0-1 in their last 3, so on the money line, maybe have a look. But overall, 6-3-1 for the St. Louis Blues club head-to-head over their last 10. Quinn Hughes, in his career against St. Louis, 11 regular season games, 5 goals, 2 assists. Quinn Hughes, anytime assist. That's my lock of the night. Sorry, anytime point. I'm copping out. I'm copping out heavy. The odd might not be great. Add it into your favorite parlay and thank me later. Thank you for joining me for the Busted Voice Solo Thursday episode of your source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We will be back tomorrow for Friday's episode. We'll see you then. Make sure you check out the rest of the Locked On Network every single day. Your team. Thank you for joining us.